Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Warning! This video is a candid exploration of the Dune universe using both Frank and Brian Herbert's novels. This video may also include discussions of violence, sexual situations, and drug use. By viewing beyond this point, you take responsibility for choosing to watch this video. All views expressed in this video are mine alone, and do not reflect any person or people, or any group or groups. Thank you, and please have a great day.
Hello and welcome to this video. I hope everyone is doing well, hope everyone's having fun, and I hope the universe is treating you fairly. Today's video, we are going back into the world of Dune. Something that my wife pointed out in the earlier video is I didn't discuss the Paul's Gom Jabbar test and the Bene Gesserit litany against fear. And the reason why she pointed this out, well, is I have her watch the unedited, the raw videos, just to see if there may be something that I should take out, add in, or whatever. And most of the time, we get everything, or I get everything, and there are times that I have to go down, sit down, and just totally redo a video. But because of the nature of these videos, I decided, you know what, we'll just go ahead and do a rewind and focus on that. Then we'll go into the rest of this going on, because we can take some time and look at it, take some time and go into it. The Gom Jabbar test is administered to Paul Atreides before they leave Caladan for Arrakis. And the Bene Gesserit, what they want to know is, A, is he capable of wielding the potential power that he may have? And B, is he going to act like an animal, or is he going to give in to his base needs, sex, gluttony, things like that, dominance, enslaving people. And Paul Atreides, and it's kind of misleading in the movies and in the TV show, Paul Atreides isn't the only male to have undergone the Gom Jabbar test. He is the only male to have successfully transmuted the water of life. But as far as the Gom Jabbar, pretty much any man that married into the Bene Gesserit, or not necessarily married into, anyone that had extensive training by the Bene Gesserit went through the Gom Jabbar. Any children that were brought up, and as they were growing up, had, like their mother was a Bene Gesserit. In fact, Count Finring, who doesn't appear anywhere in any of the TV shows or the movies, and only his wife, Lady Margot, shows up in the second Villeneuve movie. But he's just another example of a man who, because of his exposure into the Bene Gesserit culture, had to go through the Gom Jabbar. And in the movies, they do it for suspense, and they do it for, they do what they make it out to be a whole lot more than it is. And in the book, it is devastatingly important. I mean, it is important, but it's hard to translate that into film, because the Reverend Mother Gaius, Helena Gaius Mohine, and we find out later she's also Jessica's mom, but tells Paul, this is an illusion. And not so many words, and it's more poetic. Frank Herbert does a better job than writing this than I'm telling it. But she's like, look, you put your hand in here, you're going to experience pain, you're going to experience some intense stuff, but it's an illusion. I'm telling you, it's an illusion. And if you yank your hand out there, which means you're incapable of understanding logic, that this is an illusion, and you're too much of an animal and we got to put you down. And they don't really go into that detail in the TV shows and the movies, which is, and I understand why, but it's one of those things like The Voice that it's hard to do. It's because a lot of his internal monologue, a lot of it is, the situation. This is our first exposure as the reader in the book to the Litany of Fear. And believe it or not, I have used it when I've been anxious, going into a situation that I'm not real sure of. I used it a lot when I was still a corrections officer. And you have that unknown, and you have to face the unknown. And it's to take a minute and recite it in your brain, not out loud, just in your brain, because if you start reciting stuff like that out loud, people tend to think you're crazy. But the Litany of Fear will, if you let it, like all things, you have to be open to it, does have a calming effect. It gives you that moment to concentrate on something that isn't immediately, that you perceive as an immediate danger. The litany, and it changed. The litany, Frank Herbert changed it through all 6 books just a little bit, changed a little bit of wording, changed a little bit of phrasing, through the 6 books to show how things evolve over time, how language changes over time. He also does it with the names of the planets and stuff of that nature, and it's really interesting on how he does it. It's basically a parallel to things that we say and do, like growing up. When I was growing up, when you referred to something that was good, you would say, hey man, that's just bad. Or man, that's really bad, I really like that. Or like now the kids, when they really, really like something, they'll be like, hey man, you know, that paint job is really dope, or that book is just really dope. Which, if you're in an older generation, that has a whole different context to it. But it's, you know, and that's one thing Herbert does in his books, and he does it really well. But the litany against fear that I've used, and like I said, it is just to give you a moment to get everything together when you're going into something unknown or uncertain, or if you're just having anxiety issues, minor anxiety issues. And the version that I like is, I shall not fear, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliviation. I will face my fear, I will let it pass over me and through me, and when my fear is gone, I will turn my inner eye and look at its path, and only I will remain. That little bit, that just, if, you know, it just it helps to have that just as a coping mechanism, I guess you'd call it. I don't know if coping mechanism is the correct term or not, but it is what it is. So yeah, there's that. Like I said, I've used it a lot of times if I'm going into the unknown or doing something for the first time or trying to figure something out or faced something that causes me anxiety. It's great, works wonders with anxiety. Like I said, it changed. And even David Lynch, in his movie, the sci-fi TV series, and the Villeneuve movies, those directors or screenwriters change it up a little bit. So yeah, it's one of those things. So now that we've got that under the way, we are at the point where Jessica and Paul are stranded in the desert. They find in the ornithopter, they find a Frem kit, which is basically a kit, survival kit. It has steel suits, a steel tent, and everything they need to survive short term in the desert. They find a note by Dr. Yui, who basically confesses to his betrayal and all that good stuff. And also gives them directions to go to hook up with Duncan, Idaho. It's the night they spent in the steel tent, which is basically a tent like any other tent, but it's designed to collect the moisture in the air. It fills its pockets up kind of like the steel suit, and with water and stuff like that you need to survive. Seeing as how the mornings start out about 100 degrees, and I think it's like 130, 135 degrees is like heat of the day. It gives everything in the books, if I remember correctly, gives all the temperatures in Celsius, or no, actually it gives them in Kelvin. So you know, it gives them in Kelvin, so it's like 2,800 degrees or something, you know. But when you convert from Kelvin back to Fahrenheit, you're like, oh, it's only, you know, like 130 degrees or 120 degrees, you know. They're using the Kelvin temperature scale just skews the numbers. And it's great when you're a little kid. When I was reading this as a teenager, you know, you're like 2,700,000 degrees, wow. Because, you know, we didn't have the internet growing up. We couldn't go, you know, 27,000 Kelvin is what in Fahrenheit. We didn't have that. We had to do maths, and due to the severity of my dyslexia, me and math don't get along real well. Me and a lot of things. Me and grammar don't get along. Me and spelling don't get... So yeah, it's a type of format for doing stuff. But it's you know, it's interesting. It's just really... It's really cool that Frank Herbert chose to use the Kelvin degrees. But they're doing their thing. They hook up with Idaho, then they hook up with Kynes. And this is where we find out that Liet Kynes is Chani's parent. In the book, Liet is male. In the Villeneuve movie, female. Doesn't change a thing. All the people out there that threw fits and got on the internet about Liet Kynes doesn't have a vagina. No, in the book, Liet Kynes has a penis. But it makes nothing, because in every movie, TV show, Liet Kynes' importance is downplayed so far that it doesn't make a difference. Even if they didn't downplay it, it doesn't make a difference. Liet Kynes is Chani's parent. Whether Liet is her mom or her dad, that's up to the director. But in the book, Liet is male, and the penis has very little to do with anything. They get raided by the Sardaukar. Duncan Idaho dies. They escape. Liet Kynes gets captured. And in the Lynch movie, they do an okay job. In the Villeneuve movie, they skip over it entirely. But in the book, Liet Kynes is stripped down, basically almost naked, and sent out and dropped off in the desert on a where spices come to the surface, knowing that he's gonna die. Liet Kynes has visions or hallucinations of his father. His father was an off-roader. His mom was Fremen. Chani was his daughter, and she was Fremen. She chose Fremen life. And Liet's father was one of those who wanted to terraform Arrakis into a garden planet. And in spite of it being the only place to find spice, he was convinced, Liet's father was convinced that they would, if there was no spice, humans would find a workaround to steal space travel. He has this vision. He gets swallowed by a worm. R.I.P. Liet Kynes. They get picked up by Stilgar. Stilgar, the actor, I like the actor in the miniseries for Stilgar. The Villeneuve Stilgar isn't bad, and the Lynch Stilgar not so much. The TV series actually gets the duel between Jameis and Paul Wright. The Lynch movie, the Villeneuve movie doesn't. Basically, they arrive at the siege. Jameis is pissed that Paul got the drop on him and wants some kind of redemption. So, and we find out from the time they pick up Paul and Jessica, and they have the little skirmish in the desert, and we find out that Jessica has mastered the Bene Gesserit wielding way of fighting. Paul's picked up a few moves, and when they get back to it's kind of like a stopover siege. It's not a full siege, and basically Jamis that's when he challenges Paul. And Stilgar's like, you don't want to do this, dude. It's like, this dude's going to kill you, and you're going to be dead. But we find out that Jamis, while they're doing the traveling at night, that Jamis is a bit of a hothead. Good warrior, but he's a hothead. He got real short temper, and when it goes, it goes. And that's what leads him to challenge Paul. They have their fight, and in the novel, they're wearing basically boxer shorts or loincloth. The description is kind of vague, so it's up to you to read it to decide what they're wearing. But they're stripped all the way down. This is so you're not sweating and wasting a lot of your body's water, and B, you're not damaging a steel suit. Those puppies are expensive. So they have their fight. Paul wins, and they have a customary Fremen wake, I guess you'd call it. It's less of a funeral, more of a wake. Basically, all the people that knew Jamis do the I knew Jamis, I was his friend. I was Jamis's friend, and he taught me X, Y, and Z. And when they get to Paul, Paul stands up. He's crying because he had to take a life, and it was the first person he ever killed. And in Fremen society, for you to cry over somebody you've killed is showing respect to that person you killed. It's showing just immeasurable respect for that person. So they take it, so that they take that as a sign of Paul's absolutism, that he is the Lisan al-Gaid. And the Lisan al-Gaid means voice from a distance in Arabic. It's an actual Arabic. They use it in the book to mean the voice from the stars, or the voice from the distance. But it is an actual Arabic phrase, or based on an actual Arabic phrase. They tweak it just a little bit, but and he tells him, like, he was my, Jamis was my friend, and I learned that you have to be a killer to survive. And under Fremen tradition, all of Jamis's property and his wife and his kids are now Paul's. So Paul has to make the decision to make Jamis's wife a concubine, a servant, house servant, or to let her go free. And Jamis has 2 kids that are now the children of the Lisan al-Gaid. And in the movies and stuff, they kind of skim over. Villeneuve doesn't even touch it. His movies are already 2.5, 3 hours long, so yeah. But over time, she's more of a really good friend. It's kind of weird that, yes, she's his concubine, but they don't have sex, they don't live there. She's his concubine only because of tradition. she's free to go out, do whatever she wants with her body, or same with her kids, and it's weird. It gets into really good detail in the book, but from growing up in America and right now, it's kind of a situation that you kind of scratch your head and go, well, I guess if it works for you all. Then we have basically 2 years go by. And in that 2 years, Paul rides a sandworm and becomes like big honcho, big guy in the tribe, which is weird because it points out time and time again that riding a worm is something most 10, 12-year-old Fremen kid master, So yeah, that's, I guess because he's an off-worlder, maybe, I don't know. Jessica becomes a Reverend Mother, what they call a wild Reverend Mother. She takes the water of life, she transmutes it into a non-poisonous substance. She receives the awakening. She now has the memories and personalities of every female in her genetic line, all the way back to Mother Eve. Unfortunately, she's pregnant, and her daughter, Ashleigh, is also awakened to that. Which proves to be an issue in Dune Messiah and in Dune Children of Dune. But for right now, when she's born, like I said, she has every memory of every one of the females in her genetic line, all the way back to Mother Eve, and is an infant. At like 2 days old, she's like walking. At like 3 hours old, she's conversing, about philosophy, religion, She kind of spooks the Fremen, Not gonna lie, she spooks the Fremen. But, she's the mother of the Lisan al-Gaid, and so they kind of roll with it. Then Chani and Paul have a child. This is the first, Leto the second. They're doing fine. Everyone's doing well. They're harassing the Harkonnens. Just making life generally difficult for the Harkonnens. And Paul is trying to figure out how to get out of the Holy War. He keeps seeing visions of this Holy War, and he's trying to figure a way out. Got to give him credit. At this point, he's trying to give it, trying to figure a workaround. Mind you, father, the things that, you don't, as a parent, you don't want to be doing, while trying to raise a kid. Holy wars and trying to raise a kid, not good for family life. Then the Harkonnens attack and kill. They find the siege, in which Ashleigh is now 2 years old, but she's about as tall as a 4 or 5-year-old, doing 4 or 5-year-old things with the other Fremen kids, while just sitting around discussing philosophy and stuff with the adults. So they find this siege, they attack it. They kill everybody except Ali. The thing is it costs the Harkonnens like a company or two companies a minute. It costs them. And the only people at this siege were old men, children, and women. They kill everybody but Aaliyah. She gets captured. And, they take her back. Where the Harkonnens fucked up is they killed Leto. They killed the first Leto, the second. They killed him. And it was at that point, Paul pretty much like, oh, okay, you want to kill my boy? Oh, now. This is when you get the big climactic battle. The battle itself is only like a paragraph, maybe a page in the book. That is how worried about the battle Frank Herbert was. In the Villeneuve movie, they do it. They make it beautiful as scene out of it. The Lynch movie's pretty good. But I think that final battle in the Villeneuve movie is done better. I think it's because they have the rotoscoped Apache attack helicopters flying. And they do a great job of the rotoscope or motion captures. I don't think it's rotoscope in the sense of Ralph Bakshi, but it's motion capture. The base, everything, what you see on the screen is this beautiful dragonfly, ornithopter, helicopter thing zipping around. But that's basically just motion capture of Apache attack helicopters going through their drills. And that's one of the things I think Villeneuve spent money on very, very well. Did just chef's kiss as far as that. But at the climax of the battle, all right, we have the scene. In the scene, they do it pretty well in the Lynch movie. Villeneuve completely changes this ending, and the TV series does an okay job. They don't do a bad job, and it's even better than Villeneuve because they don't skip it. But in the book, Paul's sister Aaliyah kills Baron Harkonnen, grabs her crysknife, and goes out with the other Fremen children, and they're taking the water. They're killing Harkonnens and Sardaukar or whoever, whoever's not Fremen, they're killing. They're finishing them off. And this is where she gets the moniker Saint Aaliyah of the Knife. Paul has his fight with Fayed, kills him, which is interesting in the book, and it doesn't come out in the movies. Or it doesn't come out real well in the movies. They don't do a good job in the movies. That basically, anyone that the Bene Gesserit considers a wild card is subliminally trained with a word which when spoken in the Bene Gesserit voice will paralyze that person. And just because you use this word, you paralyze them, kill them, we're done. We can go grab a sixer at Walmart and be good. And Paul's like, I'm not going to do that. So they're fighting, boom, boom, boom. Paul has already taken the water of life. He took the water of life shortly after his mom. He converted it, and because he's still alive. So they're fighting, and Fayed has a poison dagger because he's a Harkonnen, and that's what Harkonnens do. And he does stab Paul with it. The stab is worse than the poison because he can transmute the poison into something non-lethal. He winds up finishing him off. Finishing off Fayed. And so yeah, and I love the touch in the Villeneuve movie where we have the birthday scene. In the book, it's much gorier, much different, but in the Villeneuve movie, when he fights the one guy that hasn't been drugged, and he says, "You fought well, Atreides." Then when Paul kills him as he's dying, his last words are, "You fought well, Atreides." I think that was a really good artistic thing that helped the movie, helped it out. As far as the book goes, nah, that didn't happen. Well, he kills Fayed, basically tells Irulan, "We're getting married. Chani's my babe. We ain't ever getting physical, so you're just a trophy wife." Chani's cool with it because in the book, Chani she's been a Jesser trained. She was part of the Fremen religious. She was not a Fedaykin, which is the warrior class. Or actually, it's a warrior. You have all Fremen are warriors. Then the Fedaykin are like the elite warriors. And with Paul's training, they became even more elite. However, Chani was part of the religious order. She was not part of the Fedaykin. You don't have the big blow up that you have in the Villeneuve movie. That was done for the non-readers. The cinephile part of me is like, okay, we understand why you did that. The bibliophile part of me is like, what you do? What? Yeah. Yeah, that's where two ideas have to two contradictory ideas have to coexist in my brain. It alludes to the Holy War. We'll get more into the Holy War when we start doing Dune Messiah. And that's it for now, people. Hope everyone enjoys this video. And remember, to be a good human, be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?